Let us start the session by chanting Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. All right. Let us turn to page number 197. Page number 197, rebirth linking in the fine material sphere. The first jhana resultant occurs in the first jhana plane as the rebirth linking, life continuum, and death consciousness. Similarly, the second jhana resultant and the third jhana resultant in the second jhana plane and fourth jhana and third jhana, second jhana plane, the fourth jhana resultant, the second jhana resultant and the third jhana resultant in the second jhana plane, the fourth jhana resultant in the third jhana plane, the fifth jhana resultant in the fourth jhana plane. In the fourth jhana plane. You know the reason for that? It is because of the comparison between, because the 31 planes of existence is explained according to the Suttanta technique of the jhanas, right? So they're speaking of between, so they are, we know that Vitakka and Vichara, right? Yes. So that is the reason, because in the second jhana, we have the elaboration which happens to say that the Vitakka and Vichara has both been sort of dropped, right? So we have, in the Abhidhamma technique, we have 5 jhanas, and according to the Sutra technique, we have 4 jhanas, right? 4 jhanas. That is the reason why it is like that, if you are confused. Now, but for non-percipient beings, material form itself occurs as rebirth linking, right? But for non-percipient beings, material form itself occurs as rebirth linking. Similarly, thereafter, do we know? Okay, we'll continue. Similarly, thereafter, during the course of existence and the moment of death, only material form exists and perishes. Right? Only material form exists and perishes. That is due to karma niyama, right? Due to karma niyama. Remember, although chitta might not be there, anusaya and karma are both existent within non-percipient beings, asanya sattva beings. We know this, yes? Yes, do we know this?
Bhante?
Yeah.
Bhante, how can you get Anushya without consciousness?
Yeah, good question, Damsiri. Anushya, Damsiri හැමලේ මාව කරදරේ දාන්නමයි මෙතන because this is actually explained in both the sutras and the Abhidhamma Pitaka in the Patisambhidhamaka, where it explains now, without anusaya, the being has to be enlightened. Non-percipient beings are not enlightened, right? Hence, we derive the fact that there is a anusaya. The only beings who do not have an anusaya, the only beings who do not have an anusaya are, we know, arahants, right? Arahants. So then that is where Damsi, remember we spoke on the phone about this as well, where we then sort of came to the understanding that whilst karma manifests and works by its own laws, anusaya and consciousness too individually, respectively, has its own laws of managing and sustaining itself, right? So we find that anusaya, with that reasoning, has an effect over both chitta and kamma, more intimately with chitta, right? More intimately with chitta. That is why we say non-percipient beings has kamma and anusaya, right? Kamma and anusaya. So I think that would also give us a deeper understanding or an idea really of how anusaya exists within us and what anusaya might be, right? It is just not consciousness. Rather it is rather it is a phenomena which affects or has a effect upon what consciousness is, right?
Bhante, can I just add something?
Yes.
Yeah, what you explained now, you just explained that the chitta, the non-percipient beings don't have chitta, right? Because they don't have a mind, so they don't. But even and anusaya, you said, is
Now,
connected with the
let me
chitta.
just stop you there for a moment. Non-percipient, some people might also say consciousness is there, however, sanya or perception is not there. This is further again explained to say without perception, Vedana, consciousness cannot arise. Right? So meaning perception not being there also means that consciousness is not there. As long as perception exists, consciousness exists, right? So because I have heard in some Dhamma talks, they do sort of say, okay, it is only just perception which is not there. No, consciousness is not there, right? Consciousness is not there. So how is the body of non-percipient beings maintained? It is maintained by the power of the karma, because karma as a resultant happens. Now when we are reborn, we have kammaja rupa, and then all the other rupas arise. For them, Chitta Rupa, Utuja Rupa, Ahara Rupa, 4 types of Rupa rises dependent upon the kammas that we bring along, right? From our previous Patisandhi Chitta, right? From our Patisandhi Chitta, Patisandhi Chuti and Bhavanga Chitta. For non-percipient beings, none of the others are there, only Kammaja Rupa. So the only effect or resultant created by a patisandhi which causes rebirth within asanya satta or non-percipient plane is only kammaja rupa. That kammaja rupa is maintained by the kamma itself, meaning that the janaka kamma, we are going to go into that today, so I think it will be a very interesting class because we all love to speak about kamma. Janaka kamma is of course the most powerful form of kamma, and it is also the type of kamma that patisandhi is, janaka kamma. This is the reason why the life of the Buddha can never be harmed, because the Buddha's janaka kamma is that much strong. Okay, Dil, please go ahead.
I think you explained, so even though you say that it is connected, that in this non-percipient beings, that some people say that consciousness is not there, but however, that it's that perception as well as Vedana is also not there.
Nothing is there except the
Yes.
body.
Yeah. So even though it's connected with the chitta, but you can still have the anusayas are connected with the chitta. and though there's no consciousness and there's no perception and there is no Vedana, but you can have the Anusa.
Yes.
Okay. Now, can I just reveal? So in the Nirodhi Samapatti also.
Before you go ahead, Dil,
yeah.
Anusaya is, of course, there's a mutual conditioning behind the relationship between Kamma, Anusaya and Chitta, right? Anya Manya Pacha according to the conditional relations. However, the Asanna Satta plane is an anomaly, right? It is a special instance. It's an anomaly, it's a special instance where Anusaya and Kamma exist independent of the consciousness, right? How we further now, for example, I think mentioned this before, in the, what is the knowledge where you see the past births? Atita. Pubbe Nivasansati, sorry. Pubbe Nivasansati Jnana. Within, there are many stories within the Pubbe Nivasanusati Jnana where Arahants, when they attain to this knowledge of Pubbe Nivasanusati Jnana, they find themselves in a state of confusion because they find themselves skipping 500, that sort of span of years that they were in or within the Asanna Satta plane. When they approached the Buddha at the time of the Buddha and inquired from the Buddha, how did this happen? The Buddha then tells them that is because you were a Asanna Satta for that amount of time, which then sort of again tells us no consciousness, right? No consciousness. Now, in meditation, now this is a question mark, so I'm not giving you a conclusion, I'm just putting it out there. Within the PAOK technique, PAOK Sayadaw speaks of a way of how we could sort of see the bhavanga, right? Of how we could sort of be aware of the bhavanga process. This was refuted by the Sangharaj of Burma, and where the Sangharaj said, of course, the Sangharaj is a very eminent Abhidhamma scholar and actually one of the most eminent Abhidhamma scholars in the whole world. He said, within the Tipitaka, I find no place which says or points to the direction where the bhavanga can be sort of, seen by a normal human, except a person like the Buddha. Not even Sariputta and Moggallana Theras are able to see such sort of sensitive cases of consciousness, right? So even within the bhavanga or in the Pubbe Nivasanusati, a being is unable to sort of even tap into those states of consciousness. He just skips the whole bunch and goes into what was previous or before that birth or after that birth, right? Already, please go ahead.
Bhante, when you regress people also, they go 70 or 80 births and suddenly come, that's something entirely different, isn't it?
It is regression, yes. I mean, I don't know whether you know, I am also a hypnotherapist, certified and qualified. Yeah, that is why I moved to the UK. So in regression, I don't practice regression. I don't practice hypnotherapy, by the way, so don't be scared. I'm not hypnotizing any one of you. I don't tell it to anyone because they become afraid, Oh, is this why we are devoted to Bhante? So in regression, they do tell us many stories about regression. However, regression has never been proved to be true. Regression does not, even through professors like Ian Stevenson and all these professors who have devoted their life into the study of rebirth, I think rebirth has more proof than the proof that regression has. Regression would work effectively for traumas and things within this life. However, we do not have proof to validate the fact that what we are seeing is true, right? So I don't think it is a good thing to, I don't think it is we have a solid enough, solid ground to speak about regression in terms of as we would speak about rebirth, we don't have enough proof for that, scientific proof or any otherwise.
Thank you, Bhante. And the last thing is, in Nirodhi Samapatti also, perception and Vedana are not there. Am I right?
I'm sorry? Yes.
Right. Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Any other questions? Padma?
Yeah. No, these non-percipient beings, I think now I get that anybody can be in that apart from the noble ones and all that who can't be. Now, in life, can you give an example of somebody who could be a non-percipient being? Or are they not in this type of time in this world at the moment?
No. Non-percipient beings do not exist in the human realm.
Oh, I see. Okay. Right. So where are they then?
They are in a beautiful place upstairs.
This is one doubt I have about all these realms. I wonder where they are. Because I always thought they were all within this world. That's what I felt. But that's another question.
It depends on the definition of world that you have, Padma. Because according to, these are planes altogether. And what the Buddha has said is these planes are not visible to us. One thing, it's so distant. Two, our eyesight is not that keen. And that strong. But it is apparently now, I remember whilst at Park and also at Naoina, there were actually monks who were able to see through their meditative attainments, and of course, Venerable Naoni Abhidhamma, and of course the Park Kammatthana Acharyas that also validated the fact that these monks and nuns were able to see these planes. There was actually a monk, Chinese, he was Taiwanese. And when he he had a bit of a panic attack and he lost it most instantly, right? Most instantly. So what we know is the fact that these states are visible to those who have developed or who are able to see those planes.
The special powers, yeah.
Yes, and a bit of a inside secret, when we have sort of white people who come into the monasteries, they don't have a filter. They don't have a filter, meaning they don't have the filter that we have because of our culture. Right. So there are things that we would ask, there are things that we wouldn't ask. Right. Yeah. Fortunately, this white person did not have a filter. Fortunately. Right. So he walked up to Pauk Sayadaw and he asked, because in the Pauk technique, we have the miraculous powers and all of these things as well. Right. And he just bluntly asked Pauk Sayadaw, Bhante, have you had superpowers? No. And put Pauk Sayadaw in a bit of a situation, because obviously you don't speak about these things. And when Pauk Sayadaw, something that he said was, yes, I did have certain powers, mind reading and the ability to I don't want to say fly, but the ability to fly and to read minds when I was younger. But later on, after the establishing of the monastery and all of that, after he got busy with teachings and all of that, he lost it. Okay. Right? So that was something that Pauk Sayadaw had said, and Pauk Sayadaw is not a person who would ever lie. They're
all right. Thank you.
Right? Just something. All right, Padma. Now, shall we move on?
Please.
Yes, Noeline, yes? Noeline, you're muted. You're muted, Noeline. Still muted. Okay.
Bhante's fine material is 16-fold, and these non-percipient people are there, aren't they, on the 7th?
Yes, but Bhante, they are in the 11th of those 16.
Yes.
And that's the 4th jhana plane. So there are
fine material, the last one.
There are 16, the last 5 are the Suddhavasas. and the ones before, the 11th realm is the Asanna Sattva, and that's in the 4th jhana place with the Vehapala, which is the 10th one. They're both in the 4th jhana.
Yeah. So Padma, that is the answer to your question.
Yeah.
As usual, I went off the question. I went off the response. Okay, that is the answer to your question, Padma, right?
Thank you, Bhante.
Now, there are certain planes within the 31 planes which exist within this world that we live in. For example, like the hells, right? Like the animal plane, right? Which are much more grosser and can be seen. Now, it is said that can be seen, whilst there are some, the divine realms are supposed to be above, which we cannot see without the divine eye, right? So Padma, maybe this is a good motivator to cultivate the divine eye, Padma. We can go to Padma with a basket of fruits, you know.
Hey, Bhante, is that the Dibba Chaku?
Yes, Dibba Chaku, right? Dibba Chaku. All right, shall we continue? Okay. Now, all right. These are the 6 modes of rebirth linking in the fine material sphere. All right. Now, page number 198, lifespans in the fine material sphere. Among these, the lifespan of the gods of Brahma's retinue. Dil, can you read this, please? Oh, Dil, you're muted.
Sorry. Okay, sorry, Bhante. So section 14, page 198. Among these, the lifespan of the gods of the Brahma's retinue is 1/3 of an eon. Of Brahma's ministers, half an eon. Of the Mahabrahmas, 1 eon. Of the gods of minor luster, 2 eons. Of infinite luster, 4 eons. And of radiant luster, 8 eons. Of minor aura, 16 eons. Of infinite aura, 32 eons. And of steady aura, 64 eons. Of great reward and non-perseverant beings, 500 eons. Of durable gods, 1,000 eons. Of serene gods, 2,000 eons. Of beautiful gods, 4,000 eons. And of clear-sighted gods, 8,000 eons. And of the higher gods, 16,000 eons. Guide to 14. An eon or kappa. The Buddhist texts speak of 3 kinds of eons: an interim eon, an incalculable eon, and a great eon. An interim eon, which is an antara kappa, is a period of time required for the lifespan of human beings to rise from 10 years to the maximum of many thousand years, and then fall back to 10 years. 64 such interim eons equals 1 incalculable eon, which is asankhya kappa, and 4 incalculable eons constitute 1 great eon, with the mahakappa. The length of a great eon is said by the Buddha to be longer than the time it would take for a man to wear away a mountain of solid granite 1 yojana, about 7 miles high and wide, by stroking it once every 100 years with a silk cloth. According to the commentators, the eon referred to in the figures on the lifespan in the first jhana is asankhya kappa, while the eon referred to from the gods of minor luster up through the higher planes is the mahakappa. Page 199, 15. Rebirth linking in the immaterial sphere. The first immaterial resultant occurs as the rebirth linking, life continuum and death consciousness in the first immaterial plane. And the others occur in the same functions in their respective planes. These are the 4 modes of rebirth linking in the immaterial spheres.
All right.
16.
So the first immaterial result, Yes. The first immaterial resultant occurs as the rebirth linking, life continuing and death consciousness in the first immaterial plane, and the others occur in the same function in their respective planes. These are the four modes of rebirth linking in the immaterial sphere. Now, we know that when a rebirth, when it is that the same consciousness which happens to proceed with the act of death, the relink in the bhavanga, are the same consciousnesses that sort of multiply, or rather give effect in these sort of manners, right? In these sort of manners. It is that consciousness, we spoke about this early in the last class, I remember, that it is because of these consciousness, it is like a magnetic pull of a sort of the consciousness to the plane, right? And this happens according to the law of karma niyama again, right? So one will never be pulled to the wrong direction, because it is, you will always be pulled into or by the power of that consciousness that you develop. If we learn anything through the 31 planes of existence, we find that as we progress along into the higher realms of the 31 planes, there is a higher span of life. This is because, one, the attachment to materiality, which is so gross, is almost non-existent to absolutely non-existent in the higher realms. Two, that is one. Two, is because these beings who live in the higher, the fine material, the immaterial planes are beings who live by the nourishment or nutrition of their minds, right? Of their minds. Their food is the food of their meditative attainments or their high states of mind. The bliss that they live and abide by, that itself is the food for their being. So you could imagine, for us, you know, I mean, for us, the things that we eat, you know, they're cancerous, they cause illness, they cause sickness, they cause decay, whilst, and just imagine these pristine, sort of pure, profoundly high states of mind being maintained by the power, and them sort of maintaining their lifespan through this. That is the concept that we learn through these 31 planes of existence. The more the attachment, and even take, for example, Dhamma Garu Sutta, no, Dhamma Garu Sutta, I can't remember. Dhammapala Sutta. In the Dhammapala Sutta, the Buddha, the household Dhammapala says, our family for generations consume only that which is good for us, only that which is agreeable to the body and the mind. Our practices have always been attuned to wholesome practices. Hence, our family for generations have not experienced untimely death. The Dhammapala Sutta, right? That, I feel like, is also something which applies here, right? The more the craving, the more the avidya, and more the dependence upon craving and avidya, the lower, the weaker, and the more sort of futile our life becomes. The lesser the dependence upon ignorance, upon craving and avidya, the lesser the dependence, the higher, the more profound, peaceful, and happy our life becomes, right? Let's move on, Bill, if you may.
Number 16, lifespans in the immaterial sphere, page 199. Among them, the lifespan of gods who have attained to the realm of infinite space is 20,000 years. Of those who have attained to the realm of infinite consciousness, 40,000 years. And of those who have attained to the realm of nothingness, 60,000 years. And of those who have attained to the realm of neither perception nor non-perception, 84,000 years. Summary. The rebirth linking consciousness, the life continuum consciousness, and the death consciousness in one particular birth are similar and have an identical object.
Lovely. Thank you, dear. I'm going to continue. No? Right. 4 types of karma. Thank you, dear. 18, page number 200. By way of function. With respect to function, there are 4 kinds of karma, namely productive, supportive, obstructive, and destructive. Right? Destructive. Guide 218. 4 types of karma. The Pali term karma chatukka, right? The name of this section means the 4-fold division of karma. This section will actually introduce 4-fold divisions. In all, 16 types of karma obtained by applying 4 different modes of analysis, right? The word karma means literally action or deed. But in the Buddha's teaching, it refers exclusively to volitional action, right? Now, when we say karma in our literal use of the language as the word karma, what we refer to is karma vipaka, isn't it? But in the true definition of the word karma, it means the action which is fulfilled according to the karma chatukka, creating this energy known as karma, right? Creating this energy known as karma, right? The word karma literally means action or deed, but in the Buddha's teaching, it refers exclusively to volitional action. From a technical standpoint, karma denotes now volitional action. Even in the Vinaya, karma and Vinaya has a strong link. Vinaya is karma and Vinaya is karma, right? Now, for example, let us take the act of killing. Killing is the karma, or the act of killing itself is the karma. These 2 things are not separate. This is discussed to great depth when we read the monastic code, because the question comes, what now, for example, the question usually is like this: at what point is the offense incurred? The offense is incurred at the time the karma is fulfilled, right? At the time the karma is fulfilled, the offense is incurred. Without the karma, there is no offense, right? Meaning, of course, we know generally if you're walking on the road or if you're walking around the house, you step on creatures, you know, you walk on your grass, you step on creatures, but you are unaware there are creatures, it will not incur any sort of karma, right? But the moment you think, there are creatures, there are worms and, all of these, insects in my garden, let them die, and you walk on your garden. There's a karma. There's a karma, right? There's a karma. But if you're not thinking about it, if that is not taken as an object, there is no karma, right? There is no karma. Now, from a technical standpoint, karma denotes wholesome or unwholesome volition. Volition being the factor responsible for action. Thus, the Buddha declares, it is volition, monks, that I call karma, right? It is volition that I call karma. Having willed, one performs an action through body, speech, or mind, right? Now, what does this mean? It is volition, monks, that I call karma. While volition itself creates karma, it is only when the volition is or matures, or we act upon the volition through body, or speech, right, or mind, that we are able to create a karma which is able to give resultant. But specific to the body and speech must be fulfilled for us to be able to create a janaka karma, right? A janaka karma can only be created, or a karma that, I'm sorry, that is not true. There are different types of janakas. For a karma to mature to a place where it can give rebirth, it must be fulfilled through body and speech. There are certain actions that has to be fulfilled or can be fulfilled through mind, where we have then the patisandhi according to that. Examples of such is the arupa, the jhanas, right? The arupa and the rupa vachara and the arupa vachara attainments, where these things are done through mind, isn't it? That is why I remembered, oh, arupa vachara, and yes, you know. But for a sensual sphere rebirth, you have to have the body or speech. All right, moving on. Any questions you can ask me a bit later. We'll just finish this part. Thus the Buddha declares, it is volition, monks, that I call karma. For having willed, one performs an action through body, speech, or mind. Volitional action, except that of a Buddha or an Arahant, constitutes karma, right? Constitutes karma. We have spoken about this before. Although we might say Buddha's, this is referring to volitional action which creates results in terms of rebirth, or else Buddhas and Arahants do produce an energy, but that energy does not lead to the resultants in terms of rebirth. However, because consciousness and for the operation of consciousness requires the impulsions, as long as the impulsions or the jhavanas are there, there will be karma which is created. Do you understand? Right? As long as the jhavanas are there, karma is created. If the Buddha has a jhavana, karma is created. However, this karma does not lead to rebirth anymore. Right? The Buddhas and Arahants do not accumulate karma, since they have eradicated ignorance and craving, the roots of karma. Nevertheless, even Buddhas and Arahants are bound to experience the ripening of their past karma as long as their psychophysical personality persists, right? As long as their body persists, right? That is, until they pass away, right? Until they pass away. The law of karma, karma niyama. The law of karma is self-subsistent in its operation, ensuring that willed deeds produce their effects in accordance with their ethical quality, just as surely as seeds bear fruit in accordance with their species. Do karmas mix? No, karmas do not mix, right? Meaning, you do, it's not, you can't, it's you, it doesn't sort of migrate or sort of connect with other karmas, right? And we will do that before. It exists individually and it will give rise individually, right? It will give rise individually. The direct products of karma are resultant, vipaka. States of consciousness and mental factors that arise when karma finds the right conditions to fructify, right? To fructify. Karma also produces a distinct type of matter in the organic bodies of living beings, called materiality originating from kamma. Kamma samuttana rupa, right? Kamma samuttana rupa. Now, with respect to function, right? Are there any questions on that paragraph, on that section? All right, moving on.
Bhante,
Yes.
said when the Rahat can still incur karma.
Yes.
Oh,
The thing is here,
yeah.
now, for example, when we speak about karma, for example, with regards to, okay, when we speak about arahants, although this energy is created, we do not refer to this energy as karma because karma itself has a definition.
Okay. Yeah.
What is the definition of karma? Karma is something which gives rise in the future.
Yeah.
By that, in light of that definition, we don't call it karma, hence it is said in this manner.
Okay.
However, if we now, there, just like in us, karma is produced by this energy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? That same energy arises. However, we don't refer to it as karma when we speak about arahants and buddhas because it is not of the same function.
Yeah.
Which is to give rise in the future.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
But the energy is always created because without that energy, the Buddha or a Arahant will not be able to do anything.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? But
But
this energy does not give rise to any sort of result in the future. Yes, Dil, yeah.
but it says here in the book you just read that they have eradicated, the Buddhas and eradicated ignorance and craving, the roots of karma.
Yes. They are speaking along the definition of karma. The definition again, karma, if we refer to something as karma, karma must give rise in the 4 ways, which we are going to discuss. The supportive, the disruptive, the obstructive, and, the birthing jhana karma, right? By light of that definition, we don't call it karma, right? However, the energy is produced when an action is done. But because the support of avidya and the other factors are no longer there, that karma is almost like, it's like ahosi almost.
Okay.
Right?
Understood. Thank you, Bhante.
All right. With respect to function. With respect to function. Because yes, although it might say in the book, when we would go into Patthana, you would find, so no, of course, both. When we go into Patthana, you would find a discrepancy in this, right? Where it speaks about the energy that is produced, because without that energy, your mind and body will not work, right? Of course, the avidya and the tanha and all of that comes in to then cling on to a being where this karma then manifests and keeps on manifesting because of the attachment to the panchaskandha, the 5 aggregates, right? That is supported. But because now that attachment is no longer there, or that structure is no longer there for the sort of the continuation of samsara, because in that light, we don't refer to it as karma, but of course, if we speak about the energy which is similar to that of karma, our energy produces resultant, the Buddha's energy does not. Right? Know that, because in the future, if we do progress in the teachings, or else you will sort of see, okay, this is a funny part. Then now you will understand, okay, it's not funny, it's just the fact that, that it doesn't give rise. Yeah, because it's a similar structure of energy, right? But it doesn't have that support to produce the resultant in the future. All right. With respect to function, karmas perform different functions, of which 4 are mentioned here. Any karma under different circumstances can perform any or several of these functions. Any karma under different circumstances can perform any or several of these functions, right? Let's look at the table, page 201. By way of function, right? Productive karma, supportive karma, obstructive karma, and disruptive karma, according to the way of function. According to the weight of ripening, weighty, death proximate, habitual, and reserve. By time of ripening, immediately effective karma, subsequently effective karma, indefinitely effective karma, and defunct karma, right? By place of ripening, unwholesome, sense sphere, wholesome, fine material sphere, wholesome, and immaterial sphere, wholesome karma, right? We are going to go through each and every one of those, right? First one, Janaka karma. Productive karma is wholesome or unwholesome volition that produces resultant mental states and karma-born materiality. Productive karma is wholesome or unwholesome volition that produces resultant material states and karma-born materiality. Sorry. Resultant mental states and karma-born materiality. We know what resultant mental states are. Resultant mental states refers to any sort of mental states that creates the karmic experience, an experience due to karma, right? Due to karma. That is what the meaning of producer resultant mental states means. So the patisandhi and all of these things will come under the resultant mental states, anything that is a vipaka, both at the moment of rebirth linking and during the course of existence, right? During the course of existence. At the moment of conception, productive karma, at the moment of conception, productive karma generates the rebirth linking consciousness and the karma-born types of materiality constituting the physical body of the new being, Now, with regard to rebirth, or the clear distinction of qualities, physical attributes, and all of that within the embryo is created specific or uniquely to that suiting karma when the karma or the karmaja rupa rises. Before that, yes, it has genetic material, but it does not have the karmic material as yet. So the karmic material, the genetic material, is somewhat of a foundation for the karmic material to arise, right? Because it is, again, if we speak, it is not so, but if we speak of the magnetic pull, right? Try to understand, it's really not, but like a magnetic pull, or rather the karma is rather drawn to that now because it identifies with the suitability, the environment where that sort of fertilized embryo exists, right? But the clear distinctions are created after the Kamaja Rupa arises, right? Kamaja Rupa arises according to Buddhism. During the course of existence, it produces other resultant chittas. During the course of existence, it produces other resultant chittas and continuities of karma-born materiality, such as sense faculties, sexual determination, and the heart base. Only a karma that has attained the status of a full course of action can perform the function of producing rebirth linking. We will be coming into that, but what it is talking about is the karma chatukka. That karma chatukka must be fulfilled, or that cycle of karma must be fulfilled, meaning the volition, the action, the object, all of that must be fulfilled in order for a karma to be now able to give rise, or for a janaka karma to arise, right? Where this rebirth karma, which has the potential of creating rebirth to arise, or else it would not, right? Can perform the function of producing rebirth linking, but all wholesome and unwholesome karmas without exception can produce results during the course of existence. during the course of existence. So when we study the javanas or the impulsions, remember we spoke about the distinctive effects of karma varying according to which javana chitta or impulsive consciousness produces the karma, right? The first one being that which gives rise in the immediate next birth, the last one being that which the first one being that which gives rise in the immediate next birth, the last one being that which gives the first one giving rise in the last birth, isn't it? Right? In the last birth of the Buddha, the last javana giving rise in the immediately next birth, and the middle ones giving rise from the second birth up until the attainment of enlightenment. Right? Am I correct? Is someone going to correct me? Damsiri?
Yeah, I think this particular one is, I like to stress actually, the only karma that has attained the status of full course of action, actually that is in Pali called karma pata.
Yes, the karma pata.
Karma pata, yeah. That means you had to, in order to take this one as rebirth linking, you had to actually have a karma pata. That means if it is well, say killing or something, like killing an animal, there are 4 conditions that you have to satisfy to complete this course or to complete this karma pata.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, yeah. Because I was looking for that translation. I found it here. The karma pata is actually this one. Yes.
The karma pata is also connected to the 10 wholesome and unwholesome.
Yeah.
So any act pertaining to the 10 wholesome and unwholesome deeds, but also fulfilled. So you can't. So just the chetana is not enough. The volition is not enough. It has to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
You have to do it.
That's right. Yeah.
When the karma pata is fulfilled, so any one of the 10 factors of the wholesome and the unwholesome, right, has to be fulfilled through body or speech, not only mind. Then there's a karma pata is fulfilled. That karma pata is able to give rise to
rebirth linking.
Rebirth linking.
Yeah.
Karma which has the potential to create rebirth linking. Right.
So if somebody wants to steal something because he was poor or whatever, didn't have some food, but realizes that this is a bad thing, and he doesn't have action or doesn't have speech, and it's a human being, not in the rupa or where thought, would you get even a little bit of that? Because
yes,
you will. So because you have the thought, but there was
but not a janaka.
Not a janaka. Okay. Thank
even
you, Bhante.
dreams.
Sorry, Bhante?
Even
dreams.
Yeah. because you see, any energy that is created, but things like dreams cannot give rise to janaka. Do you understand? Thoughts cannot give rise to, because the karma pata is not fulfilled, right? So that cannot give rise to rebirth linking. However, it can create some sort of resultant in your future. Yeah. All right. Scary, isn't it?
Bhante?
That's the end of enjoying your dreams, you know. Yes, Mala.
Bhante, your teacher now, Abhidhamma says, when you complete the karma pata, you get the janaka karma, that is patisandhi. But if you don't complete it, supposing you want to kill somebody, but you fail to kill, you just hurt, but you don't kill, it doesn't become a janaka karma, but it becomes a supportive karma. It supports when a bad thing happens. It's that particular karma becomes a supportive and helps to makes you suffer more.
Yes. Yes, exactly. It is a weaker degree of karma.
Yeah.
And it sort of joins up with whatever other karmas that.
Yeah, it joins the other bad karma and makes you suffer.
Yeah. Joint in the sense, using the word join is actually wrong. What happens, for example, let's say I have a karma to, let's say I'm sick and I have to be sick for a month, right? This supportive karma will make it 2 months now. So it is not that it is joining together, it is that it prolongs it by sort of becoming another arm to it rather than joining it. So when that karma finishes, or the 1 month karma finishes, the first month karma finishes, this karma then,
I see.
Something like that. Karmas don't join.
Okay. And the other thing is, the first jhana is the one which gives that to Ditta Dhamma Vediniya, that is, it's a present life. And the last, the 7th one, is subsequent in the next one. And if they, in the very next one. But if they don't ripen, they become ahosi.
Okay. Thank you, Mala. Thank you. So when we spoke about that, that sort of where, according to the impulsion, we spoke about, this, what Mala said now, that is referring specifically to javanas. Janaka karma, or this sort of productive karma. All the other karmas, regardless of which impulsion it arises upon, all these other karmas equally give rise to other karmas other than the productive karma. It is only in variance when we speak about productive karma. Do you understand? No, I'll tell that again. When we take the 7 javanas, the first javana gives rise to karmas in the immediate next birth. The 7th javana gives rise to karmas which will take effect from the second birth after death, right? The middle 5 will give rise to karmas between or from the 3rd birth to the birth that you attain enlightenment, right? Attain enlightenment. Why? Who decides this? It is because the first javana is weak, the last javana is weak, the middle 5 are powerful, right? Why is the first javana weak? Because asevana pachya, a consciousness of equal quality must be present in the previous moment for the consciousness of this moment to be powerful, right? That is why think about the bhavanga chalana, bhavanga upacheda. The bhavanga chalana, the bhavanga supports the bhavanga chalana to be chalana, if you know what I mean, right? Or else it will not be able to carry out that process of disrupting the mind from bhavanga and entering a consciousness. Do you understand? Because bhavanga chalana and bhavanga upacheda, they mature in that degree where now you awaken from it, because they're all the same type of consciousness. They're bhavanga consciousnesses. Do you understand? Right? So their asevana pachya is practically sort of seen there. In the javanas, in the first javana, there is no javana consciousness before the first javana. Hence, the first javana is weak. The last javana is weak because it is in the process of, what do you say, of the halting of impulsion, or the finishing off of impulsions, right? Or the demise of that impulsion stream, right? And the starting of the tadalambana, right? Hence, the last one is also weak. Remember, the arising, possessing, and falling away. The falling away is always weak, right? So that last, the 7th javana, is that falling away part, right? The middle ones are, of course, in its prime. That is why it can give result in that span, or that long span of time. Okay, moving on.
Bhante, another question. Bhante, when you talk about that three different levels, you mean you are not incurring three different karmas? So it's a one karma you incur in one set of javanas, right?
No.
So that means you can. So that means you can incur three different or four different
Millions.
Okay, karmas within. Yeah.
With,
All right.
or
Yeah.
Damsiri,
Yeah.
Pulsion stream. You do not only create javanas, you create javana, upastambhaka, upakilaka, upagataka.
Right.
All four of these are created.
Right.
And now, for example, you had the resultants. I'm sorry. I should use less Pali, but you know, within a stream of javana, you create the productive, the supportive, the obstructive, and the disruptive karmas. Right?
Okay.
All
Yeah.
four of these are produced. Now, for example, it is said by just this sort of action of talking or listening to Dhamma, you are producing so many wholesome ahetuka chittas beyond numerical sort of counting. You can't. It's so much. That is why the Buddha says you will never be able to extinguish karma. Right? So every moment it produces so many karmas with regards to, because that sort of that is, I guess, the sort of the unimaginable sort of the unimaginable sense of the law of karma. This karma is able to produce so much within that stream. Right? So whilst, let's say, at the moment of doing something which is good, you are producing janaka karma, again productive, all four classes of those karmas, which can be both weak and powerful. Right? So you're not only producing one. Yes, Padma.
So in a single chitta viti, you can produce all these four types of karma. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
Yes. Any questions about that? Dil, you want to say something?
No, Bhante.
Okay, shall we move on?
Thank you, Bhante.
All right. Can perform the function of producing rebirth linking, but all wholesome and unwholesome karmas, without exception, can produce results during the course of existence. So what is Janaka karma then? Janaka karma are those karmas that produces resultant mental states and karma-born materiality at the moment of rebirth and during the course of existence. These are very powerful karmas, right? These are very powerful karmas. So much so that it is by that power of Janaka karma that we have this sort of this bhavanga which sort of goes on through, right? Because remember, if the reason that the Buddha cannot be killed is the Janaka karma, that is to say that if I am to use the word ambience of the karma remains through the life, right? Throughout the life, this sort of vibrance of the karma remains, right? Vibrance of the karma remains. All right. I mean, that again applies to the non-percipient beings as well, isn't it? The asanasattas. Because asanasattas, the body is maintained by that same ambience, isn't it? Right? The karma jarupa arises. Now there is no being. The being who passed away from the previous birth is no longer there. It is by the spirit and power of the karma that the non-percipient being's body is maintained. Right? There is no doing there. but there is a sense of vibration, not vibration, that sense of sort of effect that karma has in every moment, because of course the rupa flow is happening, right? It is not a place where the time is sort of stuck at a certain place. Time is not stuck in the non-percipient plane. Time happens. But so then if time happens, change happens, impermanence happens, meaning that there is upada titibhanga of rupa kalapa, rupa materiality happening in each and every moment. And that is to the spirit of karma. By the spirit, I mean that sort of that karmic energy which was created at the passing of the previous birth.
In that case, can we assume that, Bhante, in a non-percipient sphere, you can actually incur bodily action?
No.
Or karma
No.
due to bodily action? No.
None of that.
Okay, but you still need, for that, still need a certain amount of consciousness.
Yes.
Okay.
Karma cannot be created without volition.
Yeah. Okay.
So it is a process of exhausting karma, really, that happens at the state of non-percipient.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions about Janaka? Noeline?
Yes, Bhante, if Janaka karma is the most powerful one, why is it connected to the weakest? If Janaka karma is the most powerful one, why is it connected to the weakest Javana?
Okay, I might have to correct myself there. Janaka has the potential to be powerful, right? Whilst Janaka can also be weak. Now, for example, in animals, in ghouls, in beings who are born in very, very weak places, lowly births. So Janaka has a potential to be, of course, weak. However, with regards to that being, if we do not compare it with other beings, within that being's life, the Janaka karma has a very predominant role. That is what I meant earlier, but I should have been a bit more clearer, right? Within that person's life, if we do not compare, let's say, an animal to a human, if we compare it, we can't say Janaka karma is powerful, because obviously the Janaka karma of the human is going to be more powerful than the Janaka karma of the animal. However, if we just take the animal in comparison to all the other three types of karma, Janaka is always going to have a very predominant effect upon the person's life. Do you understand? Because Janaka is what keeps life going. When the Janaka is not, now remember in Buddhism, we speak about this example where we say, when we are born, we have the oil lamp, the example of the oil lamp. There is the wick, there is the oil, right? When the wick and the oil burns out, that symbolifies the burning out of, or the exhaustion of the Janaka karma, right? And then we have other sort of untimely deaths where we say, okay, the oil has been spilled over, the wick has burnt away, or something of that sort. We give other examples to say, okay, there is still potential for the Janaka karma. However, because of obstructive karmas or disruptive karmas, the Janaka karma has not been able to flourish to its fullest potential, right? To achieve its fullest potential. Right now, we all would then be able to live. We have a potential to live a certain amount of years. So, for example, because of the karma that we have, we will never be able to live for 1,000 years. 1,000-year people do not or will not be born at this time within the human realm. But before, in the previous time or in the future, when the lifespan is long again, the beings who will then be born will have 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, 100,000 up to asankheya, right? So beings who are born at this time, you and I, are beings who deserve this. So that is a reflection upon ourselves again. This is what we have done. You know, so it goes around and somehow comes to our actions. You know, why can't we have a break, huh? The finger is always pointed back at us. Yeah. So yes, Noelin, thank you for asking that. So I corrected myself there. In a being's life, jhana karma plays a very predominant role. But of course, there are weak jhana karmas, there are very strong jhana karmas as well. Right?
Thank you, Bhante.
Yes, yes. All right. Now, for example, if we take in the animal world, right, we know there are certain animals. Now, in the animal world, it is survival based living, isn't it? You know, you have to survive. It's the survival of the fittest, right? The right of you know, in a herd you would have one male, right? And the one male will be procreating with the other females of the herd, right? It is now, if you take, it's an animal, the male animal, the female animal, it's an animal. So the jhana karma is at that level. But you see, certain animals within that have now, or are able to develop or have the physical strength to be able to be the alpha. That is done predominantly by, of course, the jhana karmas. Right? So whilst there is, so for example, you know, all of us are humans, but we know that within humanity, we have a hierarchy or a sort of class, or, you know, rich and poor, and, you know, all of these things, weak and strong, and all of these things, genetically robust and genetically weak, you know, genetically as well, isn't it? You know, there are people who come from very strong genetics, there are people who come from very weak genetics, right? So we can't say no to that. That is a fact, right? That is created by the power of the jhana karma, according to the law of karma. Yeah. All right. Oh, going to get in trouble with these things, you know. Supportive karmas. Shall we move on? Any questions about Janaka? No? Okay. Upatambaka. Supportive karma. Karma, supportive karma is karma which does not gain an opportunity to produce its own result. Supportive karma is karma which does not gain an opportunity to produce its own result, but which, when some other karma is exercising a productive function, supports it either by enabling it to produce its pleasant or painful results over an extended time without obstruction, or by reinforcing the continuum of aggregates produced by another karma. Let's go through that again. Supportive karma is karma which does not gain an opportunity to produce its own result. Now, productive karma can produce its own result, right? Supportive karma cannot. But which, when some other karma is exercising a productive function, when a janaka karma is giving effect, right? When a productive karma is giving effect, supports it by either enabling it to produce its pleasant or painful results over an extended time without obstruction, or by reinforcing the continuum of aggregates produced by another karma. What does, now I think the first part of it, supports it either by enabling it to produce its pleasant or painful results. Now let's say a janaka karma is present, However, the productive or the jhana, I'm sorry, I'm using part. The productive karma is present. However, whilst the productive karma is present, it needs, or it is not powerful enough to give rise or to fully come into fruition. The supportive karma now can support this karma to come into fruition fully, right? Do you understand?
Bhante, so you're saying that you said earlier, karma don't mix, but here, though they don't mix, they're additive. They're additive. They don't mix, but they're additive. It's supposed to become so.
They never mix.
Yeah.
This consciousness do not mix, right? Similarly, karmas do not mix in that way and create another sort of a, it doesn't happen. This is what I am reminded, the example, have you watched Transformers? I wonder. Transformers, your children must have watched it. So in Transformers, in the movie, you might not know this, but for maybe the recording will, some other, there's something called energon. Energon is something that you link up with the Transformer. So for example, the Transformer will have an energon which sort of creates a higher power, or like a gun or something like that. That is what the supportive karma does, right? It is somewhat like, okay, your computer does not have a camera, one of those old computers. It doesn't have a built-in camera. So what do? You buy a webcam and you place it on top of the computer. Now that's a supportive karma. Understood? So it is like that add-on, you see. It is like that add-on. So for example, your old credit card or your debit card, it didn't have the ability to have that touch feature where you can just touch it on the. Now you have that. You see, that is a supportive karma. Right? It supports, or it sort of creates that sort of add-on which enables it to flourish. Right? The flourishing of it depends on a lot of factors. Right? Now, for example, when we talk about beauty, right? Now, I watched this video about the history of beauty, and there was a time, for example, of course, now we find, of course, 6-packs, 8-packs very attractive. There was a time 6-packs and 8-packs only belonged to the poor because they didn't have enough to feed themselves. So that time, when you were sort of very healthy looking and you had a big stomach, that would be very attractive. Right? So now, it would be easier for someone that came back into style, isn't it? We don't have to exercise and take care of ourselves much. So now karma, or the potential of that ripening, because now, for example, Janaka does not have a distinct, while it has a direction, right? It doesn't have the intricate details of what it exactly is. Now, for example, you have the karma to be born beautiful, right? The beauty would then depend on when you are born, to which area you are born into, right? And all of these things. Now, for example, let's say, this example that I just made, right? The karma would reflect the time, the circumstance, because the circumstance, the time that you're born in. It will not give you beauty of 1,000 years before or 1,000 years in the future. For example, standards of beauty, it is in the mind of the perception. It's perception, isn't it? Beauty is perception. The karma matures with effect or with affected by that environment. Do you understand? Now, for example, that is why I brought this sort of history of beauty thing. So at that time, that karma would give rise in a different way to the way the beauty standards are now. This is explained in the Mahalakkana Sutta, where it says, it speaks about the attributes, the physical attributes of the Buddha. It says the Buddha has the beauty which suits and is the most beautiful or most handsome in accordance to the time that he is born in. Right? So if there is something considered to be beautiful at the time, that is what the Buddha will have. Do you understand? Right? So karma has that, takes or will take into consideration that environment as well. Right? It will take into consideration that environment as well. Right? So supportive karma. Any questions? Okay. Supportive karma is karma which does not gain an opportunity to produce its own result, but which, when some other karma is exercising a productive function, supports it either by enabling it to produce its pleasant or painful results over an extended time, prolonging it, right, without obstruction, or by reinforcing the continuum aggregates produced by another karma, reinforcing the continuum of aggregates produced by another karma, reinforcing the continuum of aggregates produced by another karma. Now, for example, let's say you have a karma where a certain part of your body changes color due to some sort of karmic reason, right? In those sorts of instances, karma works by influencing the elements and the aggregates, right? Because you see, karma, rupa kalapa, there are individual rupa kalapas. Individual, or what is English for kalapa? Is it set? Materiality, no. Kalapa. A collection, it is. Okay, I'll Google it. Sorry. Kalapa, it's called Rupa Kalapa. Yeah, it's a bundle. Clusters, that's right, clusters. Right? Now, clusters of materiality exist together in order to ensure stability within the material, right? If we take a gross example, we know how a molecule, or how a molecule sort of the structure of a molecule, right? Or if you take a gross example, we know any sort of material has to have the support of different attributes for the material to be stable, right? For the material to be stable, for the material to be able to prolong. Now, this body has an uncountable number of rupa kalapas, right? If it is one karma affecting one, if one karma has to give rise, now let's say, okay, this color of the skin, right? I have a karma where I'm going to sort of have a discoloration happening on the side of my cheek, for example, right? Now, at this point, side of my cheek, there are many rupa kalapas. So is the karma going to affect each and every rupa kalapa? Then there must be many karmas. So what it then does, it reinforces that effect upon the elements, meaning the elements which can cover this whole cheek, In that way, the karma is able to, so one karma but covers a lot of kalapas. That is the meaning of that reinforcing. So let's say I had one karma where my right cheek was going to be discolored. The supportive karma spreads it to the left cheek as well. Now reinforcing that effect upon the aggregates, right? Let's say, because this is often with regards to, remember, the Kushta Roga, right? The skin rashes and all of these things that have been spoken about with regards to spoken about in Buddhism, you know, where the skin rashes spreads, and because it's a karma. Now, when it is something of sort of a skin rash, it's the same thing. The skin rash may be for a specific part of the body, but the supportive karma spreads it throughout the body or spreads it to another part of the body by reinforcing the aggregates, right? Yeah, you have the supportive karma, you have a karma where you're going to go blind to a certain extent. To a certain extent, right? Not fully. The supportive karma comes along, reinforces that same action upon the aggregates, creating the circumstances where now you go fully blind, or even more blind than you were. Yeah? Do you understand what that sentence of reinforcing the continuum of aggregates produced by another karma? That is what we are speaking about. For example, when through the productive function of wholesome karma, one is reborn as a human being, supportive karma may contribute to the extension of one's lifespan and ensure that one is healthy and well provided with the necessities of life. When an unwholesome karma has exercised its productive function by causing a painful disease, other unwholesome karma may support it by preventing medicines from working effectively, thereby prolonging the disease. When a being has been reborn as an animal through the productive force of unwholesome karma, supportive karma may facilitate the ripening of more unwholesome karma productive of painful results, and may also lead to an extension of the lifespan so that the continuity of unwholesome resultants will endure long, right? Will endure long. So Janaka karma sends you to hell, to Avicii, for example. Supportive karma keeps you there for longer, right? Janaka karma sends you to Avicii, and then you sort of go through the fires of hell and you burn and you undergo continuous pain. Supportive karma heals the body so fast so that you endure more pain the next moment. Good. Yeah. It's 8:30.
Bhante did,
Yes.
sorry, Bhante, I didn't. So you said the Janaka karma, we are burning in hell, and the supportive karma will come and heal you?
Yeah. Because, yeah. Yes. Heal you for the purpose of experiencing more pain. Right. Now,
You get.
yeah. Let me explain. The purpose of places like Avicii is to create pain. Supportive karma supports the pain experience. Hence it heals. Do you understand?
So why must it heal? If heal, you won't have pain.
So it heals. So okay. If you're burning fresh skin, right, that creates even more potential to burn more than skin that is already burned, something like that. Or let's say now, for example, in certain hells of the what's the sutta? The sutta about the hells. Alavaka? No. Avicii? No. I forget. So in the sutta of the hells where they cut you and they chop you and, do all of that to you. It says, for example, it speaks about how you're axed, right? And they flip you over. And the moment they flip you over, that axe wound heals. So they can axe you again. Right? Hence, giving them the ability to sort of lengthening the ability for you to endure, or sort of for you to now be the receiver of this pain, right? Supporting the jhana karma that you have brought with you. Yeah. And this again, of course, that jhana karma, for example, in places like Avicii, in places where you experience pain, that is a result of dosa. Dosa burns. Even at this moment, if you get angry, you burn inside, you feel it, right? That is what is manifested 1,000 million fold when you sort of go into those levels. So actually we are asking for it in a way through our consciousness, right? So that what you have cultivated is going to be manifested, or karma is really just helping you, really. Karma is very equanimous. It will give you what right? Or rather what you sort of, what you choose to bear in mind, it will give you 1,000-fold. So that is where the supportive karma comes in, where it helps, not helps, rather, it supports in the objective of that environment. Yeah. All right. So
Bhante,
yes.
last question. But this is not pravritti karma, right? Pravritti karma is different.
Pravritti karma, we are not speaking about pravritti karma. We are talking about upastambhaka karma.
Yeah, but it's different from pravritti. Pravritti is actually, it's not supporting anyone, anything. It creates its own resultant, I think.
But in this, so the jhana karma, with regards to this category, right?
Yeah.
The janaka already creates the main element.
All right. Okay.
Right. The supportive karma just prolongs whatever which is created, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah. Not pravritti karma as yet.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah.
So, all right. So it's 8:30. So let's end the class now. We had enough of cutting and chopping for one day. So, Dil, you have a question?
No, Bhante.
Okay. All right. Mala?
Bhante, this Janaka karma, its function is just to create patisandhi and then continuous bhavanga? Is that all?
Its function is to create. Now, create the rebirth linking and cause of existence, and also create resultant mental states within the birth as well. So it establishes, of course, kammaja rupa, patisandhi, and janaka karma can also create mental states within the birth as well, right? Because of janaka karma, it can create mental states within that birth as well, right? Now, for example, when a person attains sotapanna, right, that sotapanna, that energy is manifested into the next birth as well, in a way where now you continue along the spiritual path of practice, right? So that jhana karma has an effect upon that practice now, because that is what the overlay has been already set within when you died in the previous. So that is why it says productive karma is wholesome or unwholesome volition which produces resultant mental states and karma-born materiality at the moment of rebirth linking and during the course of existence. At the moment of rebirth linking, which involves the karma rupa and all of that, and the course of existence.
Right. So it's both patisandhi karma and pratisandhi vipaka and pravritti vipaka both.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So now, for example, now when you have janaka karma arising now by the power of janaka, or productive karma, you are born as a human.
Yeah, yeah.
The jhana karma, or by the spirit of jhana karma, you're going to keep on producing those respective mental states. You can have the karma to be born as an animal, for example. Of course, we do have that karma to be born as an animal, right? However, because the jhana karma is human at this level, it will keep on producing that respective element, not anything else. That is by the spiritual power of the jhana karma. Yeah.
Thank you, Bhante.
All right.
So Bhante, that means like the states of sainthood, like Sotapatti and things, these are all Janaka karmas, because once you have attained that, next time you will be that, you won't go.
The sainthood has an effect, or the sainthood, yes. The sainthood, when attained to, creates the energy where the jhana karma is now altered, for sure. And the jhana karma keeps you along that path. Because now what the rebirth would imply, or even for a non-returner or a once returner, you see the person follows along a specific path within that life. That is because of the karmic energy which is supporting that, or which has laid foundation to such an attainment. Do you understand?
That is a Janaka karma, not a supportive Upastaka
No,
karma.
that's why I changed the word. It's not support.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a jhana karma.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante.
The jhana karma lays that foundation in the beginning. Yeah.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay. You can think about it and we can go through it next week. Yeah. Okay. All right. Then take care. All the best. And I forgot about the revision.
Excuse me, Bhante.
I know that all of you are so excited about the revision.
Forget about the revision, Bhante, now.
Please forget about it. It is more interesting.
Yes.
Bhante, it is much more interesting for us.
Oh, I'm sure it is, dear.
Excuse me,
Ask the
Bhante.
class. Bhante, ask the class and see how many votes for revision and how many class votes. And we go with majority decision.
Sometimes communism is good, you know. Sometimes communism is good.
Excuse me, Bhante.
Yes, then.
Bhante, you will post this because I want to listen to what we
Yes.
discussed today. You will post it. And I was confused when you said something about the dreams being right. What was that? You said the dreams.
Well,
I didn't understand.
yes, dreams fall under manokamma.
Manokamma.
Manokamma is also a type of kamma, but however, does not fulfill the kamma pata. Because it does not fulfill the kamma pata, it cannot give rise to patisandhi. However, it can produce other sorts of kammas other than those which produce patisandhi. So, manokamma can produce all kammas other than the janaka kamma.
Janaka Kamma. Okay. I didn't understand why a dream would have an effect like this. We are not dreaming because we want it to come. Want to dream about something.
However,
Yes.
I mean, we can't say that as well because the dreams are usually manifestations of the mind, and in the case of, or in the course of dreaming, it is energy that goes into dreaming. You're not. It is energy that goes into dreaming, right? Now that is why now even for example in playing games, right? Of course, you know, some of these games are quite realistic and murderous, isn't it? You know, that produces karma. However, of course, it does not produce karma that leads to rebirth, but it definitely does produce karma, you know, in that violent action of actually dreaming. So, you know, I used to do a bit of gaming on the PlayStation and all of that before I became a Buddhist, and after I became a Buddhist, I stopped it, you know, because after learning
They can have an effect. Oh, I see.
You know, yes.
Thank you. Understood now.
All right then. Take care. and I'll see you on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, of course, we have Kamal's talk. I was also wondering, oh, let me just off the radio.